Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, thank y'all for coming through. We appreciate it. We're about to get started in a few minutes. We appreciate it. We're about to get started. I know you guys could have been anywhere in the world tonight. Y'all came here, so we really appreciate it. So to give you guys some context, what we're going to do is we want everyone to scan this QR code because we want to do a poll just to understand who's in the room. We have a lot of founders, creators, creative, so we have a good understanding of who's actually here so we can cater tonight's conversation based off our audience. Also, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Newark Tech Week, JP Morgan, Prudential. There's a whole bunch of them. This would not be possible without those sponsors, so thank you so much. Again, Newark Tech Week is a 5-day conference happening in the city of Newark. Oftentimes, you got to go to LA, you got to go to New York just for these types of conversations, and it's here in Newark, and it's for free. So I really appreciate you all for being here, and we're excited to actually give you guys something of value. Y'all came here, and our goal is to deliver. So hold us to that. So if you guys have scanned the QR code, we're going to get ready to get started with the first question. So how would you identify yourself? Like I said earlier, we have a lot of different people in the room, and we just want to have an understanding of who's actually here. So we're seeing the results live just like you guys are. So we want to know if you're a founder, if you're a student, educator, let us know. So we want to have this up for like another, 10 seconds before we go to the next question. So we're still waiting on a few more people to use their smartphones. Yeah, we got a lot of corporate folks and we got some founders. Perfect, okay. Okay, question number 2. What is the biggest business challenge you're facing right now? So let us know. There's different questions here, different answers here. So we want to have an understanding of like, what is the biggest challenge you're facing right now? Okay. Okay, it's fluctuating. Seems like it's time. So a lot of people are struggling with time to get things done, okay? Access to capital, other. I'm curious to know what other is, okay? We're going to find out. We're going to find out in the conversation. So it's mainly time. Okay. Time and other. So let's make a mental note of that, what that other is. And one more question. And the last question I want to ask you, given the topic of tonight's session, in one word, what does culture mean to you? Okay. Okay. So I love the word cloud, seeing all these words in real time. I see a lot of people talking about community, being accepted, family. Okay. Now this is perfect. And again, based off this information, we're definitely going to use this as we talk more about culture as a growth engine tonight, and also ask a few more questions to really unpack this a little bit more. I guess we're going to take our seats and get started.
How y'all feeling? Everybody good? All right. Real quick, I know a lot of y'all don't know me. Real quick, can everyone say hi, Mom? My mom's right here.
Hi, Mother.
Thank you.
Cool. So we're just going to go around and introduce ourselves, and we're going to end with answering our take on culture. So for those who don't know me, my name is Wadnes Castelly, first generation, family from Haiti, raised in Irvington, born in Newark. Pretty much had a linear background. Went to Irvington High School, went to Rutgers University, studied marketing, and pretty much knew from an early age I wanted to work like in the media entertainment space. So I spent my time working at the Brooklyn Nets and Barclays Center, Showtime Networks, TikTok, Spotify, to name a few. So I've been around professionally. And I always, brands, right? So I always wanted to take the things that I've learned professionally and bring it back to my community. So I'm also the founder of Capab, which means capable in Haitian Creole. It's a marketing consultancy that helps early stage founders develop go-to-market strategies to win and keep customers using culture as a differentiator. And for me, Culture, to me, I define it as an invisible set of rules that influences how we show up in the world, how we do things, how we see things, how we behave. And a prime example of that is, I don't know if we have like any West Indies in here in the room or any Haitians by show of hand, but like for me, I grew up with this concept and understanding of the three L's: L'Église, L'École, L'école, which basically means house, home, and church. And those were the principles we grew up on. Or like, for example, if you have family over or like extended people over, if you're coming into a space, you're not greeting your elders, that's a sign of disrespect. Not kissing them on the cheek, not acknowledging their presence, that's a sign of being mindful of the community you grew up in. So for me, those are just prime examples of culture. And I think that the same way those are invisible rules that apply in my family dynamic can apply to business as well.
Fair enough. So my name is Corwin Connor. I'm the founder of C, which is a literacy platform that helps schools deliver rigorous and culturally relevant financial education. Now, I didn't set out to, be a founder, but I've been fortunate enough to move through a number of spaces from my actual community to Wall Street, and now like in education in schools more broadly. And that experience honestly just highlighted a very unique problem that I'm sure is not foreign to you all in the room. And I'll certainly speak more to it. But as time went on, this passion grew, and I also grew more and more delusional to the point where I thought that I could actually create something cool to really solve this problem, right? And so because I did, there are now like hundreds of students who have had exposure and access to this type of education. And so like I'm very, very happy and grateful for this like journey that I've been on, and very excited to share some of the things that I've learned so we can kind of shorten everyone else's learning curve, and you can save the time that I had to spend. And one thing I didn't mention is that like I'm originally from East New York, Brooklyn, but I've been living in Newark for the past 15 or so years. It's actually crazy when I say it out loud. That includes my time at Rutgers Newark. There are probably a few other people here from Rutgers Newark as well, so appreciate y'all for pulling up. And then just jumping into the culture or what it means to me, right? I think culture is like in its purest form, it's just empathy, right? It's being able to walk in someone else's shoes within reason because of some sort of shared experience or interest or circumstance, quite honestly, right? It's being able to not have to say what's understood. That's culture to me. And with that, I'll pass it to Darren.
Well, let's give a round of applause for the fellas. I actually want to give a, hold on. Of course, I'm third in line to go out to both of you guys. Crazy setup. Listen. Real talk though. Let's give a real appreciative moment for Corwin and Wadnes though. These guys brought me into the event. They did a lot to get you guys here, set this up. This is not going to be a normal panel where we're just talking and it's like fluff. We're actually going to teach you guys stuff and our perspective on how things are and the space that we're in. So please give a round of applause for Wadnes and Corwin, please. Appreciate it. Wanda's mentioned it earlier, but spaces like this don't really exist on the East Coast. Like you do gotta take that flight out to the Bay Area if you want a room like this. So I'm very appreciative to be here right now. So thank you guys for inviting me. So a little bit about me. I consider myself a builder. I'm Darren. So I'm a product lead at the Walt Disney Company. So when I say builder, I mean builder of things, and I build digital consumer apps. So I started my career over at NBC Universal and actually got to build their version of a Dropbox or a WeTransfer. Let's say for all the content you watch on Peacock, that has to go somewhere, and my team built that. I went over to Warner Brothers, and we built what you know as the HBO Max app today. So when you're watching shows like Succession or Game of Thrones, that was us, or Insecure. All those personalization features or shows you want to watch. My team was in charge of that. I did a quick stint at a startup just to get that Silicon Valley vibe, so to say, and kind of get my learning. Currently at the Walt Disney Company, the department I'm in, we're in charge of the Disney Plus application, Hulu, and ESPN. So over the summer, I actually launched the new ESPN Enhanced app. So if you're a sports fan, we just put a bunch of new features all over, like NFL content and NBA, all like 30 leagues essentially. Crazy amount of scope, crazy amount of visibility, and a lot of fun, nonetheless. I also want to note that I help founders build. So throughout this conversation, I'm going to give you little tidbits on how to go from 0 to 1. So like to go from ideation to actually full on launch. And that question that you posed, Wadnes, is around culture and what does it mean to me? It's actually a hard question to answer from someone who builds products because we typically don't think about culture when we're building products. So I had to really, really think about this one. Something that is, I guess, comes to mind is around shared values. So there's tons of software development teams. You see big fangs like Instagram or companies like Google. There's one thing that's unique about development teams if they have a shared value around maybe experimentation or building fast or getting from point A to point Z. There are other teams that just don't get how to build. So I think culture for me from a builder standpoint is how do you think about building products? But yeah, selfishly enough, I actually have something I've been thinking about from my perspective as a founder and how I scale my business. I've been kind of going back on like, do I run more ads on YouTube? Do I run more ads on Instagram and TikTok? Just understanding like, how do I push out campaigns? Wadnes, I have a question for you, and I hope you can answer it for me. Around, like, what do you think, and this is near and dear for me because I want to scale my business. What's the misconceptions founders have around like pushing out their business and using ads as like a runway to like for marketing or growth?
I think that's a great question. I think there's a common misconception that if I'm a founder and I want to grow my business, I need to run more ads on Facebook Marketplace or whatever, or I need to pump out more content on social media. And that's a big misconception.
That's what I'm doing now. So I'm just trying. I'm in line.
So you're in the right place asking that question, right? Because whether you got money or you don't, I don't recommend that. What I think brands should really do is take a step back and really think about what actually do I want to say and communicate to the market, right? Prime example, when I think of a sports team like the Brooklyn Nets, right, for example, based here in Newark, New Jersey, moved to Brooklyn. At the time, Brooklyn did not want a basketball team, right? They didn't want basketball at all. And the Brooklyn Nets professionals, the executives, they had to think to themselves, we're transplanting a team that was rooted in Jersey, we're bringing them to Brooklyn. How can we sell the borough of Brooklyn basketball? Because they didn't want basketball. So what they did instead of just putting out ads, putting out content saying that, oh, basketball, basketball, it took a step back and said, how can we communicate this to the people here? And the way they did that was by a shared value of Brooklyn pride. Everybody I know from Brooklyn is hella prideful. These two included, right? Hella prideful. Brooklyn, we go hard. Brooklyn this, Brooklyn that. And that's what the Brooklyn Nets did, right? They had a campaign called Hello Brooklyn. Y'all probably see it somewhere in the back, right? And the whole purpose of that was to introduce the Brooklyn residents of what it means to have that pride. What does it mean to them? And how does that show up? So before ever introducing basketball, they talked about the pride of Brooklyn from the merch, from the ads, all of that, before they ever released anything noted to basketball. By the time they introduced basketball as a concept to people in Brooklyn, they had sold out merchandise, they had sold out almost everything to the point that literally the NBA noted that last year, New Jersey Nets had like the worst merch sales. The next year they came in fourth the following year, just because of that. So the key takeaway here is that regardless of whether you're a founder with money or without money, money is not going to be the answer for you to get customers, to drive customers. It's that shared understanding of what is a deep belief that my consumers, the people that make up my customers have, and how can I unite them with a message that resonates beyond the merch, the gear, something that people can actually feel. And that's the way that you develop messaging that actually move the masses through that shared feeling. And
I like that.
You like that? I was helpful?
I like that.
All right, cool. Clip that, right? So with that being said, I'm also thinking about it from the standpoint of education. So Corwin, from your lens, I know you're a founder, you're building in the education space. What gaps did you see in that space? What is your unique lens? And what made you passionate about solving it in the way that you're solving it now?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, financial literacy instruction in schools is failing because it ignores cultural context. And whether or not schools understand it or know it, it's negatively impacting student achievement. When students don't or can't see themselves in what it is that they're learning, they disengage. So what I ended up doing was going through the financial literacy curriculum for I don't know how many school districts here in New Jersey, and I found a common theme. And that theme was this focus on the what for the most part. sometimes the how, but like never the why, and never with cultural context. And if you all like, I'm sure you all know, but things like family values and community norms and relationships with financial institutions are incredibly important. And we think about these things when we're making money decisions. And with students, it's no different. That actually led me to partnering with Rutgers Business School, where I was able to work with 60 or so high school students, just interviewing them, understanding what their experience has been like. And the response was consistent in that their experience was inconsistent. A lot of that has to do with the time constraints, right? Which is a whole other conversation. We're not getting that into that today. But what they also shared about the delivery was that it lacked the engagement and connection that they were hungry for. So what it looked like was worksheets, effectively. Sometimes they had a teacher, sometimes they didn't. And it looked like schools were just using financial literacy from a compliance perspective instead of the opportunity to connect that it actually is. And that actually reminds me of this story of a principal out here in Newark. His name is Principal Cook. He's the principal of Westside High School. And he had the problem of attendance at his school. It was dropping. They couldn't understand why. And so instead of blaming people or making any sort of assumptions, he just spoke with the students. And he asked, like, what was going on? Come to find out, kids were being bullied. And they were being bullied because their clothes smelled. And so they didn't want to come to school. So this man put a laundromat in the school. Right? So just to take a pause, raise your hands if you think attendance stayed the same or decreased after that. Raise your hands if you think it increased after that. You are absolutely correct.
1,000%.
And so I say all that to say it's really the same exact framework and formula I applied to financial education, in that it's like very much listening first with the intention of understanding a culture before you're building whatever solution actually comes with that, right? And because of that, I've been able to build a platform that's improved student learning as it relates to financial education, roughly 60%. And like now, like 80% of them prefer this to what they were originally getting at school. And all of it came from actually listening to them and seeing what actually works, right? So to that, I'd say like just culture really helps understand some of these things that data really just will not call out. And it's really why I ended up building C, so that we can weave in culture into financial education, so we can get the students furthest from opportunity, access to converting their education into opportunity, quite honestly, right?
That's amazing.
Thank you. And so and in the spirit of like talking about the impact of culture and how it can impact users, teams, and mindsets, right? Like Darren, you talked a lot about being a builder. You talked about what comes with that, what doesn't come with that. And we obviously all have our biases and things that we're thinking about when it comes to building products, right? Like I've just shared my 2 cents. Wadnes did his. Can you talk about how like a product team's culture can like influence the products that end up being shipped? And before that, a little bit of a doozy. Can you explain what product is to people in the room who aren't aware? Just
Break it down, Professor.
Great,
30
great.
seconds. 30 seconds.
Great question. Quick definition for consumer digital products, right? Everything that's in your phone right now, right? Probably has an engineering, design, and product team. That's in the essence of what a product team is. We ship and develop great features for you to use and consume digital experiences at the highest 50-foot view. Back to your original question now. That one's hard. Like, I got to think about that one a little bit. Again, we don't really think about, culture when building products, so it's hard to say. The lane or avenue I'll kind of look at this at is more so around collaboration. I think it's a good lever. Like, teams that are typically successful in 2025 and beyond building digital products typically have a high caliber of collaboration. A good example of that is a company called Figma. If anyone's familiar with Figma, they're a design tool. A lot of designers use it for prototyping, mocking up things. Every feature that Figma builds is built on collaboration. Their whole essence for you is to collaborate with your team, like literally. So go back and walk it back to their product and engineering teams. You have to think about features to help with and assist with collaboration. So that's, I think, a DNA that teams have to build great things that's culturally relevant, if that makes sense, from a product builder's perspective. Another company, I think it was Myro. They had an event on Tuesday that I got invited to, and Miro's more of a, what's a good example of Miro? They're like,
A digital workspace.
yeah,
white
digital
space.
workspace. Let's say like everything that Google Drive does, but in one place instead of having to go to like Google Docs, then you got to go to your Drive tool and spreadsheets. Everything's in one place, all workflows. So they had a big product launch. They're like, hey, all right, we know the scoop. You're going to tell us about all the new AI tools, right? They actually didn't do that. They're like, hey, we were very intentional about our product launches. And here's how your team, whether you're a founder team, like 2 people, or you're an enterprise level company with 10,000 people, here's how you can use our product. And they actually went out and set out all the different use cases to collab with different people, whether it's your marketing folks, your lawyers, you're a fellow product person. I think that's super intentional, and that's kind of driving on that level of collaboration that makes a good product team. So that's my take on that. And I actually want to take a little turn here, just a little bit. This event is culture, right, as a growth engine. So we were talking, obviously, we've been talking for weeks. Culture is a growth engine, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna throw something back at you again, Wadnes. Like I think, let's go from the founder lens, right? Or a company. If you're building something and you're not necessarily weaving in culture to your go-to-market strategy, how can that hinder business traction? Because I'm thinking about it I'm thinking about it from like collaboration, and we can scale and we can make this really cool feature because we're collaborating together. That sounds great. But if I'm a founder and you're saying that culture is really going to drive growth, like what's going to prevent me from getting business traction?
Absolutely. So if you're a founder, if you're a business person and you want growth, you have to first understand what growth means. And growth literally means, in one word, impact. And how can you have impact with the people you want to serve, the customers? So a prime example of why culture is important, there was a startup called Bodega that launched in 2017 by ex-Google employees. And the whole purpose of Bodega was to provide these high-end vending machines that had all the products that your local grocery store bodega would have. And the reason why they did not serve the community well or be successful at all is because they literally did something that all brands hate doing or shouldn't do at all: cultural appropriation, right? How are you gonna have a business called Bodega, right, and not acknowledge that there's businesses called bodegas in the local communities, immigrant communities that support their communities, and not even think about considering to be mindful of that, right? So they launched, had VC funding and all of that, and they crashed and burned real bad, right? And the reason why they did that is because they did everything right, from what Darren was saying earlier about building out a product. You know, we did our product management scope, we did all this, that, and third, but they didn't talk to people. They didn't talk to local communities. They didn't ask them, I know you have these local grocery stores in your community. What does it mean to you, right? I know that you may be running short on, on money. You may be on ends meet and whatnot. How does this bodega serve your community? And what ways does it help you? Because we have this product and we want this product to serve you, but we would need to understand, how can this replace what you're currently doing now? So if you're building a product, you have to be mindful of the customers, but not just the customers, the people who make up the customers. Because those people have pain points, they have desires, they have outcomes that they want. And if your product isn't able to meet their needs, then it's not going to be accepted. And as you can see, Bodega didn't do well. They crashed and burned.
I never heard of them. That's
and you never heard of them too. You didn't hear. You haven't heard about them either. So I would say that when you're building a product, no one cares about your product. They care about the outcome your product can provide. And if you're telling me that this product, this app or whatever, can give me this transformation that I'm seeking, then I'll adopt it. If not, I'll maintain the status quo of what I'm doing now. So I'd say that if you're building, think with culture in mind, because culture will give you what Corwin talked about earlier based off his definition of culture: empathy, caring for others, thinking about them from their perspective. And if you build your product should do the same thing too. And with that being said, it has me thinking about culture from the standpoint of how can culture be used as a way to help the people you want to serve. So when I think of culture, I'm asking myself, okay, Corwin is a founder. How are you leveraging culture, or the concept of culture, to help the people you care about, educators, students, parents, decision maker? How is culture being used as a catalyst to help the people in the education space that needs it the most?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm asking hard questions. Yeah.
For the side. So I use culture to grow by building key relationships creating the content that students actually respond to, and really just building stuff that my audience will actually enjoy. And for this next part, like if anyone else here is a builder or thinking about it, like I caution you to really like receive what it is I'm saying, because I started on this journey without knowing it, and I could have saved a lot of time, right? So I do that, right? Like I use culture in those ways by like conducting ethnographic research. And what that means is it's a fancy way of saying putting yourself in, whomever's shoes as much as possible, right? And so like I do that by sitting in classrooms, going to conferences, going to board meetings, right? Consuming their media. If they're listening or receive a newsletter, I'm reading it as well, right? And that's important because in the education space, there's actually like not just one person or one user, right? And I have to consider everyone. And so from the student's perspective, it's really speaking with them and hearing how they talk about money, obviously listen for the things they're saying and not saying, and whatever else it is that they care about or don't care about, right? Like that tells me exactly what is missing from what they're currently getting and how to get them to pay attention effectively. Now, with educators, they have a very unique culture of their own, right? And like I'm aware that I'm speaking through an education lens. You can apply the same 1, 2, 3 formula in whatever space that you're in, right? And so with educators, they take immense pride in their work, and you have to come to the table respecting that, and it's deserved. They're incredibly overprotective of their students, as they should be, right? And the backdrop with that is a long list of barriers that they're actually fighting against in order to deliver this work. So with them, I approach it very much like, hey, I'll bring them into the creating fold, right? Like, here's this thing, not trying to sell you on it. Would this even work in your classroom, right? Like, are there needs of your students that I'm not taking into consideration? What else do you think would make this more viable, right? Now they feel heard, right? And I don't know how much you all know, but sometimes there are teachers or educators who don't necessarily always feel heard by a number of folks. We're not going to get into that, but just setting the stage, right? Now, ironically, that dovetails into the decision maker group of this, right? We're talking principals, superintendents who have, again, their own culture and things that they have to consider. We're talking a laundry list of goals, whether it's enrollment pressures, test scores, budgets, you name it. And so with them, right, not a lot of time trying to hit my goal, understanding that and being able to speak the language that they're speaking will help you align the work that you're doing with their goals, right? Instead of just saying, hey, I hear you got this problem, you're spending all this time, here's this thing. It's like, no, man, I understand you're at a board meeting and you got parents yelling at you. I know that's not easy. Like, here's something that can probably help with that, So it's really being able to understand that fundamentally and not from like a cultural appropriation standpoint, right? And people can read that, especially people in education can read that from like a mile away. And once you do that, you're now a trusted thought partner. And just to put proof to the pudding, I was actually invited to speak at this conference in Atlantic City today, right? And to speak on this exact topic on how like powerful cultural responsiveness.
Mind you, 2 pounds in one day,
Stop.
superstar.
Stop. On how cultural responsiveness and cultural relevance is important when we're talking about improving student achievement. The data is literally there. There are so many research, so many studies on this exact thing, right? And because I am thoughtful and I listen to the way that they're speaking, I'm not trying to shove something down their throat. When I'm sharing things, they land such that someone at the end of it who works for the New Jersey Department of Education approached me about connecting, right? And that wouldn't have happened if I was on this panel. Side note, I was on this panel and 3 other people, all doctors. I was the only non-doctor. I actually felt very out of place, but I showed humility. I didn't push my agenda. I was there to support all the administrators in the room in whichever way possible. And so that's often well received, right? So I say all that, and I want to bring it back to the point I mentioned earlier. Like when we're talking about culture, it really does uncover just insights and opportunities and ways to help and ways to deliver value that like data alone or a Google search or even using ChatGPT, quite honestly, will not help. And so, it's really important to think about that. And it's really been helpful in my own journey and getting buy-in from the people that matter, right? And it really makes me think about just like adoption more broadly and what we have to do in order to get that, right? And I'm gonna ask Darren about his thoughts on adoption, right? Especially with like this cultural context. Are people thinking about it? Do they care about it? What have you seen? What do you like? What do you don't like? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're over.
Gotta think about it for a second.
All right,
Gotta think
all
about
right,
it for a second.
And also think about it from the standpoint that we have like first-time founders in the room, first-time entrepreneurs, people that actually want to build a business, hopefully this weekend. What advice would you give to that person?
Okay, let's take it from two angles then. I'm thinking about an early stage company. It's called Ticker. They're basically a social investing app. For the folks in the room, how many are you financially literate enough to, if someone gave you, I don't know, $100,000 today to go invest, can you make the right decisions in terms of apps? You can raise your hands high. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Okay, so Ticker basically allows folks who come from unrepresented groups to understand how investing works and doing it through following. So if I've invested in, let's say, United Healthcare because their stock went down, and Corwin saw that, like, hey, Darren, you invested in this app, I'm gonna invest in it too. Vice versa, Wadnes can see the same thing and also invest, right? And I'm using this as an example because you mentioned adoption, and I'm trying to think of a company or a starting group that's using basically cultural norms as their lever to get people to sign up for this application. Folks who might resonate and be like, wow, I kind of grew up not knowing how to invest in stocks. I actually don't know which stocks to invest in. There's obviously apps like Robinhood, but this solves a different problem. This is giving you community to help you invest. And so they're using, again, a cultural lever to bring people together. Now I'll kind of shift it a little bit. A company that was early stage, maybe like 10 to 12 years ago, but they're much bigger now, which is the Strava app. And they have about 100 million users now. And they did something similar, and I'll kind of bucket that under community building, where their app, so folks in here have used Strava, but it's like a fitness application where if you're bike riding, you can see where other folks bike ride or went running or things like that. And they're basically no different from like the Nike app or any other fitness app, but they're really pushing on this whole thing around community and doing things together. So going back to pulling on cultural norms, Ticker is pushing on a cultural norm around financial literacy. They're pulling on a cultural norm around you wanting to work out, be around people, see what they're doing, and kind of like matching their energy. So, and that's helping them with adoption. I'm gonna go one level higher. I went early stage founder, and the Ticker app I mentioned probably has less than 10K like members, and they're probably scaling up. Again, Strava has 100 million right now, and I think my next example will be maybe around Airbnb. Let's use them as an example. We're talking about adoption, right?
That's a good one.
That's like a company that does a really good job of continuously reinventing themselves. They even eliminated their product team. I think a lot of their folks are like product marketing folks, but just to say around Airbnb, they leverage, let's say you're in Colombia versus you're in New York, they'll build features for that particular audience. They'll do experiences for that particular audience or community because all they're trying to do is build trust so that you rent somebody's home. Like that's all they're trying to do, but they can't use the same approach and the same feature sets across the globe. They won't scale efficiently. So they're also using a form of adoption and I think scale to help them do that, which is pretty impressive. Going back to the Ticker application for a second, because that's the most applicable to maybe someone who's starting out in this room. Let's say I did that. Let's say I'm the Ticker founder and folks are signing up and they're like, yeah, I like it. I want more financial literacy, but I don't know. Maybe I haven't weaved in like culture into my go-to-market strategy, so I'm not getting any traction, right? Like, what's a good way, or I should say, like, if I want to start up again, I am the Ticker founder, and I'm not getting any traction at all. How can I use basically culture as a growth engine for myself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of founders, they have an established product already. So they built the product, they may have an MVP. Minimal viable product, right? A very small version of their product in action. And now they're saying like, okay, I built the product, but I'm struggling to get customers. What do I do? Oh, let me go to ChatGPT and like come up with a strategy. Let's see if that works. That ain't gonna work.
Let me vibe code.
Let me vibe code, right? Let me use some like AI tool that can help me build out a product because I'm not very technical. That's not going to work, right? I say that because I literally spoke to a founder. It wasn't you, right? No, it was someone else. I spoke. No, it was you. It was you, right? No, it was you. So here's what happened, right? So I'm on a call with Corwin, right? And I'm telling him about like go to market, right? About like you need to have a strategy, right? You need to develop a strategy for like your way to launch C. And he was like, I hear what you're saying, bro.
Yeah.
But like, why do I need that? I could just use ChatGPT to come up with a strategy.
100%.
And I said, okay. But you know what I did? I wrote a Substack article inspired by this guy. And the whole purpose was a lot of founders have that misconception. They think that strategy is something that I can just get from the internet. I could put in a prompt. This is my situation. Give me some ideas. And that's not going to work. The reason why is because you need to fundamentally understand what strategy is. And strategy is pretty much you identifying trade-offs, right? I can do this, that, and a third, but which option is going to be best to help me achieve my goal of winning, right? And winning can be subjective, right? You need to know what winning looks like for you. Oftentimes, a lot of founders confuse tactics for strategy. Tactics are the things you can do. Strategy is the higher concept, the goal that you want to achieve. The two are different. You want to develop a strategy that's going to help you get to the finish line, and the tactics are going to support you in achieving that strategy and making it come to fruition. And I say that to say that when it comes to building a product and getting customers, you need to identify like what is your goal, right? They often say like it's important to have 90-day goals because in 90 days, that's a good increment of time for you to see change, to see transformation. So if I'm building a product and I want to get customers, I'm asking myself, one, what is my 90-day objective, right? In 1 quarter, what do I want to achieve? The second thing I'm thinking about is based off of all the options, all the capital, everything that I could do, what should I do, right? What makes the most sense, right? What's most sensible that's going to allow me to achieve that goal? And from that, I'm identifying the tactics. What specific things should I do that's going to help me achieve this specific strategy that I created? And the reason why I say that it's important to think about culture, because like I said earlier, your customers are people. People are emotional. People buy with emotion and they wrap that with logic, right? The clothes we buy, the school we go to, the job we take, we think about it from an emotional standpoint, and then we use logic to basically negotiate with ourselves to make it make sense. So if I'm building a product and I'm building a strategy, I'm asking myself, okay, based off who my customers are, the people that I'm positioning myself to help, what are their pain points? What are their problems, right? What is the common norm that they all believe? When I say common norm, I'm asking myself, like, what is the belief that they all have, right? What are their behaviors? What are the artifacts? How can I tell this person's my customer? Oh, because my customers tend to do this, do that, right? I need to be able to find a way to identify them. And what language do they speak? And when I say language, I'm not talking about like Spanish, English, French. I'm talking about what is the specific words or phrases they use based off the community they are part of. Like, for example, if I'm a doctor, I'm in the medical field, there's a whole bunch of words that I use that the average person wouldn't know. If I'm a musician, there's probably notes on the piano that I talk about that I wouldn't know, right? Every community has their own shared language. And if I'm building a product, I need to understand what is that language my customers use, they talk about, and how can I create marketing messages that speak to that on my website, on my social media page, on my emails. I need to speak to those people because those people are my customers. So when it comes overall,
bad example, good example, but that just dinged me with like the Bleacher Report app when it got up. It used a lot of slang terminology to get people to use the app, basically leverage notifications to get you back into the app, and just the way people speak around sports. And that's like an example of like how do your customers speak versus it being like maybe a little stuck up and maybe, too professional. Right, this person scored 30 points, but it's more like, oh my gosh, he got cooked, right? And that's getting people back in the application. So in terms of what you just said around, like what languages your customers use, like that kind of resonated a little bit with me.
No, absolutely. And that's like from a tech side, even from a consumer side. Like I got loafers on right now, but I typically wear New Balance. And for you guys who know about like streetwear or sneakers, New Balance used to be seen as a dad shoe. Now it's super cool. Everybody wearing New Balances now, right? Why? Because they're who's wearing New Balance right now? Oh, my man right here. He got some New Balances on, right? And what New Balance did, they repositioned themselves. They realized, okay, I think there was an ad that was really popular, like, hey, this is a shoe worn by old white guys in the Midwest, right? But now you're seeing models out in Europe wearing New Balance. Why? Because they identified who exactly their customers are, how can they speak that language, and how they could create creative ads to speak to that. So in essence, what I'm saying about culture, go-to-market strategy, you need to really understand the people who make up your customers, understand their identity, what they feel, how they see the world, how they show up in the world, thoughts, pains, all of that. And that's going to influence how you go about creating advertisement ads and ways to reach them. Because again, if you're using data points, if you're doing Excel sheet downloads to understand XYZ, that's not going to help you. Because people don't buy with logic, they buy with emotion. And the way you do that as a founder, you need to build a system, right? How can I build a system that's evergreen, that's consistent, that's going to allow me to weave in the stories of people, right? John, Sarah, Todd, their pain points, their dreams, their hopes, their aspirations. And how can I weave those stories into a narrative that talks about my product and the transformation my product can provide? Because at the end of the day, no one cares about your product. No one cares about none of that. They care about what your product can do for them to help them achieve their goals and their dreams. And if you're building products with that in mind, you're building right.
This is the exact response I got when I was like, why would I not just use ChatGPT?
Yeah, I gave him a lecture.
You know,
Yeah.
and it makes complete sense. It honestly does. And so after that, I was just like, all right, man, like, when are you free? Like, can we just keep on? But everything he's saying is incredibly valid, especially when it comes down to the messaging and the language you're using.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I really appreciate that because this is a conversation I had with Corwin, I think earlier this year probably, right? It was earlier this year. And I reflected on that conversation and it inspired me to like write about it because he's a smart guy. We went to school together. So I was like, if he believed that, that means a lot of other people believe that too. So how can I create content to basically share that misconception that a lot of people have, especially in the age of AI? So since AI, ChatGPT, all that's really popping right now, I'm curious to know from a culture standpoint, how do you think that's going to impact the future of education for students, for parents, decision makers in the age of AI? How can culture be used as a catalyst to either support or maybe find a way to help educators and students in this space? Because again, AI isn't going anywhere. So how do we adapt if we do adapt?
Yeah, Corwin, you take that one.
Yeah. Okay, so, all right, yeah, I'll break it down this way. I think culture is the missing ingredient when it comes to deciding if AI in education will help students or leave behind students like we kind of expect to happen, right? To that, who here, by a show of hands, is familiar with the sentiment that screen time is impacting students' attention spans and making it harder to teach? Okay, cool. Who here has heard the response to that being phone bans? Okay, cool. Same. And one thing I have not heard is the deeper question of what if the lessons themselves just are not engaging enough, right? We evolve, we're human beings, things change, right? We're not doing the same things we were doing in 1930. So the way we have to like teach has to mirror that. And there are a number of fantastic educators that are taking that power in their own hands, right? So, but my point is, if culture is how we connect with students, then AI is how we personalize that at scale, right? And there's a huge opportunity for AI in education to provide a level of individualized education and learning we've just never had. But I think the real power is it helping schools unlock their students' potential like we've never, ever seen. Hopefully transitioning them from consumers to creators, quite honestly, right? Now, I believe, broadly speaking, that AI can be the great equalizer. However, historically, we've seen that any time there are shifts like this, think industrial, digital, obviously AI right now, the same types of communities get left behind. And I personally am on a mission to change that. I see it, that there's like, everything we're experiencing is a pattern. It's all cyclical, right? This is just the way the pendulum is swinging this go around. So, in knowing that, right, I'm just trying to, get ahead of that. And any educator or school leader I get the ear of dropping that in there because they're dealing with so many other pressing things. Like for those of you who are, don't work in education in the room, there is a laundry list of things these teachers and administrators have to deal with every single day that is not their fault, but takes away from the student in some respect, right? And so I drop these nuggets in there anytime I can because it is the future, and we're at a very unique, or we're at an inflection point, and yeah, it's really crucial. And if we're able to really harness the power of culture plus AI, like AI alone is a tool, but if we can really overlay it with culture, like I mentioned that there are students furthest from opportunity, we can literally give them an education to opportunity roadmap they have never had. It is, certainly up to, all of us and things like that, but that is how I see the relationship and future of like AI and culture.
Just to add on to that, so I'm going to challenge you. So I'm a parent, do it, right? So I'm a parent here in Newark, New Jersey. I have kids. They go to charter school, right? I'm busy, and I'm assuming that the school system is going to educate my child for the future economy, to be a productive person in the workforce. What would you tell parents today who think that the school system is going to educate their child to know the things they need to know to have a successful future? What would you tell those parents today in the room?
First off, we would have to start by like just level setting on like what our education system is, what it's capable of and not capable of. And I think increasingly so, like we all, parents or not, expect our schools to do so much. Oftentimes higher ed gets left out of the conversation, even though they're a big contributor or helper or have like a tremendous amount of influence there. But I tell them, like I tell students, like honestly, like pay attention to what actually is happening, right? Sometimes you gotta take pick your head up and things like that. But also in the spirit of culture, what I also try doing, I don't say I failed, I just haven't figured it out quite yet, is trying to harness the power of parents and the culture they're in. Because like parents have the biggest and most powerful voice. Like if they're mentioning things to schools or school districts, administrators, they get heard. So I'd say that, and also just be mindful of what it is that their students are consuming, right? And leaning into, giving them the subscriptions they need to, explore with some of these like tools and things like that. But that's honestly my 2 cents, right? Like there's no perfect answer. Caregivers and parents know their children and students so much better than I do. And sometimes I actually shy away from giving like broad or broad statements because what works for one student or family may very well not work for the next. But in the spirit of just like seeing the wrecking ball that's coming our way, we kind of just have to do what we can to sidestep it and make sure we're kind of setting our students up for success. And that, to answer it more succinctly, showing them what the other side looks like.
Yeah.
I find that that's like the most powerful thing, but like gets incredibly overlooked. Like having someone in a room, or the ability for industry to make its way into education, like getting kids to see why this stuff even matters is critical. So for parents, I'd say sharing that message with the administrators. You got to work, you got to feed them, maybe check homework, you're tired. You don't have to do anything else, but what's the word I'm looking for? Reinforce what's learned at school, but light a fire under your administrators. And actually, in the spirit of being forward-looking, right, and being helpful to people in here as much as possible. All right, Darren, I think you're a smart dude. You speak, I learn, I listen. And so we're talking about culture as a growth engine. How there are builders in the room, or I'm a builder, right? It's my first day. How, knowing what I know, can I, or should I be centering culture for the growth engine that it is, as opposed to leaving it as an afterthought?
You get the hard questions, my guy.
No. Here's it's not a problem, but again, we don't necessarily build digital products with culture in mind. So I'm kind of using it as like my starting point, and let's see where I land with this. But so I think a few things. Let's say you're starting off fresh, you're a founder. I mentioned earlier around using moats, around levers, around. I mentioned Ticker, right? They're using cultural norms to help them build. I mentioned Strava and how they're running app using fitness to help them build products. I think depending on where you want to go, I'm thinking about, you mentioned future forward. When I hear future forward, I just think of scale, right? Like, yeah, I have 0 users today, But when I have 100 million users, like what's going to happen and how can I get there? And I think it's everything we just spoke about. I'm talking about it from like you just built the product. Let's say the product is built. Honestly speaking about it from the sense of, well, what happens next? Like, how are you going to track these people? Why would they use your products, right? And this is going to be extremely important if everyone in this room can go into any tool basically today and make an app, right? Like you no longer need a whole engineering team. You can kind of get your idea out really, really fast, right? It's scale. There's Claude and Gemini and all these different tools. Depending on what you want to build, there's something for you, and it exists right now. So understanding how things operate in terms of people and how to attract them, that's going to be extremely important. So you almost have to be a little bit more balanced, right? You have to be a well-balanced product team in terms of the features they're coming out with. But now you also have to think about, well, who am I building this for 10 times X? Like that's one of the core principles of building is know who you're building it for. But now, like, well, how do I weave in culture? Because I might have to be a little bit more niche to make some traction, right? The players in the game are the players in the game. Like you're not knocking off the Googles and the FANG companies like at the moment. Like think in their new entrants, right? Like you think about OpenAI, and even the term FANG is almost changing to Mango. And like NVIDIA is here with chips. So it's like if you're, again, a smaller founder, depending on what you want to build. You could want to build something that only nets you, like, I'm making up numbers here, 100,000 a year. Or you might want to build something that nets you $100 million a year. Like, what are you trying to build? What's the scale? And if I'm going to leverage culture, what am I trying to do? It's like, what's your X? Like, what's your landing point? What am I trying to do? That's like the most important thing. I think that's the theme of what we've been talking about. And when you brought this conversation to me, I was a little bit stuck. Because again, we don't really think about this when you're building a digital product, at least.
So when I think of culture from a product management standpoint, from a product building standpoint, I'm asking myself, like, who are the players in the space, right? So you mentioned like the Googles, the major tech companies, right? But specifically, if I had to think about like a lane that I wanted to carve for my product, right? How could I identify a lane and then be able to apply culture based off that lane, right? So from that standpoint, let's say I'm thinking about, I don't know, a fintech tool, right? A financial technology app that can help me with my money, right? There's tons of that in the marketplace. But how can I have my own spin on that by applying culture? So with that context, what would you say?
I know what we talked about earlier. It's like, well, I don't know how to invest, so I'm going to use investing as my thing, right? Like that is super important. I think I met a founder the other day who's building stuff in the media space, and they want to use tools like Sora to help them, right? I think a problem they're going to run into is an IP issue. You can't necessarily use IP from big companies like Disney or Warner Brothers. They're starting to sue now. So you can't do that. It's off the table, right? So if I want to build more of a video generation tool, or I want to leverage it to create content or movies for somebody, like how do I do that if I can't use IP? So you have to start thinking about it in the sense of dialing it back a little bit and saying, let's do movies or TV shows or content creation for people who just want to shop. Super niche, but that's like how you're going to start off, and then you can start to venture out and branch out.
Actually to that, and it's going to be a question for either one of you, like increasingly we see like people making decision to start like building community before they actually build something, or well, maybe they're building something, but and then they're building the community with that in mind. Now, when you talk about like how important that like building around a community is in the aspect or perspective of culture, and like how that can either accelerate things, decelerate things, and things to kind of be mindful of. Do you think it's valuable?
Yeah, I can jump in first. It's hella valuable, right? With a capital H. And the reason why I say that is because what's the opposite of doing that? I spend months, if not years, build a product, it's done, and now I'm trying to get customers, but I'm struggling to get customers because I never told anybody about my product, right? Common, right? I heard something, right? Exactly. So what's the opposite of that? Okay, I have a product idea. Let me spend time actually building out my community. Let me create content, right? Let me talk about the problem, right? Because again, people don't care about the solution, they care about the problem. So I'm telling people like, yo, this is a problem you have. You're going to sleep at night crying because of it, right? You don't got money in the bank account because of this. This is a problem. It's a painful problem. And to make it more practical, I'm gonna give you guys a framework. So when I think about problems, I think about how my problem fits this framework. It's called PURE, P-U-R-E.
Yeah.
Painful,
Yeah.
urgent, recognizable, expensive.
That's my Bible.
So if my problem doesn't fit that pure framework, it ain't a problem, right? So you want to be mindful of that. So if my problem fits that, then I know I got something. So my goal is to create content around that. As I create content around that, I'm finding ICPs, my ideal customer personas, profiles. These are the people that will love my product. So all I got to do is reach out to them and say, hey, brother, are you having this pain? If I could promise you this outcome, would you want it? Okay, cool. Give me your email. We'll be in touch, right? And that's why you see a lot of businesses are able to get customers straight off a landing page because they communicate the problem and they say, as we're building the product, we'll let you know when it's ready, but we got you on a waiting list. Stay tuned. We got you. And that's the way you do it. Build community first, then you build your product. You can snap if you want to or clap. I don't know if I hit, but, or something.
This is why we need you, because the way you explain it makes sense. But, because hold on, a lot of, at least in the tech community, I'm talking from more like software builder perspective. A lot of people do build communities first, and then it goes south. Like my newsletter has blah, blah, blah followers, or they throw these big events and all these people come. And they're like, cool, I just launched this app. Do you want to use it? And they're like, I don't care about that. I came here for the free drinks. I came here for this. And it's like,
how are they centering their content around that community? Did it have anything to do with the problem they were building around?
No, it's all like community-led growth is a really big buzzword. Or like we have that's for all intents and purposes, like this really big tech community in X space, or we all like Web3. And now since it's the AI season, we all love AI. So let's all get in a room because we all love artificial intelligence. And then someone from that community is like, cool, I have everyone. We've done X amount of events. You all attend. Let me throw my app idea out here, and I want to get you to subscribe to it or sign up for it. And it's like, that's not, to your point, the proper way to build community, because it's almost a sense you have this big user base, but this is not the right audience. You have the user base with no audience. If that makes sense. Like the people are there, like you guys in the room. If I came up to you right now and said, I'm building this e-com tool, but none of you guys care about e-commerce. And like, I actually would prefer if you were building a finance tool, that'd be a little bit more applicable to what I'm doing, and I'd actually use it. So.
Yeah, to that, I'd say you probably seen a graphic on a display of a Venn diagram basically talking about product or culture for the standpoint. I mean, it's not a Venn diagram, but it's pretty much breaking down culture as a system. And essentially, there's like 4 layers to it. There we go, right there. 3 layers to it, right? So first, you start with identity, right? You want to be able to understand the person. And the reason why you see their hand, because we're all unique like a snowflake, right? And once you're able to understand the identity of that person, you want to think about it from the standpoint of what are their beliefs? What do they believe? What are their behaviors? What are the artifacts, right? What are the things that they buy, the things that they wear that basically signal to you that they subscribe to this? And lastly, what's their language? So I'm essentially saying that if you look at that graphic, that's a great example of the things you want to think about when you think about the people that you want to reach out to in your audience, your customers. So I would encourage you guys to take a picture of that. That's a strong graphic right there that can really help you think about culture. And one thing I also want to say is that as far as my key message to everyone here, I know some people came here early, some people came here late, but if you take anything away from why we believe that culture is a growth engine, it's understanding this. I said it a million times already, I'm gonna say it again. No one cares about your product. No one cares, right? People care about what your product can do for them. And if you wanna win customers and keep customers, you have to constantly weave in that story of who exactly you're looking to help, what transformation your product can provide, and speak to them in a way that data can never speak to them, by being able to understand what actually serves them, what moves them, and by understanding their cultural belief, the way they see the world, the way they show up in the world, and who they want to be, you're able to reach them in a way no other brands can. That's why you see a lot of brands that are generational. Johnson & Johnson, right? Procter & Gamble, right? Those brands stand the test of time because they know who they serve and they know how to reinvent themselves through different economic era. And that's what your brand wants to do, right? Don't just think about today, don't think about tomorrow, think about the next 100 years. How can you still be relevant in the next 100 years? Because if you're thinking about it from that perspective, you're thinking with culture in mind.
I was gonna be like, nah, this guy's great. Like,
man. Definitely not topping that.
But what's your key message though?
Yeah. Nah. Honestly, like if you taking, my whole shtick has been just like being very much focused on the community that you actually want to build something for, right? But like with that, I'd say like it's incredibly important to show up with humility. You are not the person who knows the most in the room. By nature of being in that room, you don't know anything, right? So it's very important to show up with humility. And even though we were talking about culture in the context of like maybe like fitting into something that is existing, I think it's equally, if not more important, to like understand it so intimately that you're able to like have a vision, or not have a vision, but have vision around like what it's going to take to then transform something for that community, right? The same old status quo is not going to cut it. So you need to like understand this community, this culture with intention, and with a forward-thinking mindset. Because where we are right now is not where we should be from a year from now, and so on. So that'd be my 2 cents, right? Like, be a nerd, show with humility. If you're really serious about solving a problem for a particular culture or community, and yeah, that's what I'm on.
I'm going to say we're going to learn how to use culture in building digital products together, like I mentioned earlier. And if there's founders in the room or you have a concept or idea, again, feel free to come and speak to us. Like we'll put you on the right path or figure out like what you're trying to do, if that makes sense, and see how you can scale, or even if it's a good idea, bad or not. Like you don't think about the idea too much. It's just about like, can we get this down on paper and can we go out and build it quickly? Because I think we're in an age now where everything is fun. Like you literally, like I mentioned earlier, and everyone knows, I'm sure you everyone's on TikTok and Twitter, like you can go build your idea in 5 minutes. Like let's go figure out how to do it in 5 minutes and then figure out the sustainable model where we're going to build it out in six months to a year. And that's the product you put out in front of people.
So we're gonna do Q&A, but really appreciate you guys listening to us yap about culture as a growth engine. So we really appreciate that. If anyone has any, oh yeah, clap it up. We appreciate that. Thank you. So in the spirit of time, we want to take how many questions would you say?
Call it a handful.
A handful. So I got a hand and I got 5 fingers, so I'm assuming 5, right? So we'll do about 5 questions. So if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. Introduce yourself briefly and ask away.
Hello, everyone. I'm Obina, and I have a question for you. You were speaking about strategy, and I was wondering, what's your process for developing a good strategy? And then how do you know you've reached the stage where you have the confidence to execute?
That's a great question. So strategy is a constant thing that people have to understand. It's constantly moving, right? It's never fixed. So when I think about strategy, I think about understanding what is a core problem that's fixed. When I say fixed, I mean it's a problem that I would agree with, he would agree with, Darren would agree with, right? We all understand this is a core problem. Then from that, I'm identifying what are the different levers, right, that contribute to this problem. So I'm basically trying to solve this problem based off those core levers. These things contribute to the cause of this problem. And by understanding it from that level, I'm basically building like my decision tree almost, right, of breaking down that problem to identify, okay, which aspect that I need to focus on that supports my way of solving it. Because again, you can have a problem, you could build a strategy, but understanding there's so many different components you have to figure out, and it's constantly going to be in flux. So being able to understand that, what are things that I can do to subtly validate this problem? What is my hypothesis? How can I test it quickly to validate this? And if my theory is correct, then I know that I have a solid hunch of how to solve about this problem. But the short answer I'd say is that you just have to be willing to put in the work to test the different theories that you may have, and be able to know that once you hit on one of those theories, then you can go all in with executing it. And when it comes to execution, being mindful of time that you have, right? How much time do you have to solve this? What are your resources? What are your constraints? And being mindful of doing it in a time-bound manner to get the result and outcome that you're looking for. Great question.
You can also hit them up. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a QR code.
Scan the QR code.
So any one of you guys can answer. My name's Courtney. So I know you all have your own, I guess, companies, applications, whatever you want to call it, but you're also are a part of other bigger companies, right? So you've been a part of growth and culture in that aspect, but then also in whatever you're growing. Can you tell me about like the difference between, or I guess what the challenges are of growing culture, but then also sustaining it as your company is growing, right? Because it's forever changing. So you've been a part of it in like a corporate setting, I would assume, and then now you're growing your own company. But like, what's the challenge between growing it, starting it off, but then also scaling it as your companies are growing?
Um, I mean, yeah, Darren,
Yeah.
you can answer it too, but my 30-second answer is, and it's like kind of product 101, staying as close to the community and culture as you possibly can, and being respectful while doing so. A lot of people, and I'm sure between Wadnes and Darren, like they can name a number of companies off the top of their head, but they start off great and they struck gold and probably got comfortable. And so being continuously obsessive over your customer and the culture you sit within is going to be incredibly helpful. And I don't know about these two, but also working at a bigger corporations has shown me a lot of what not to do as well when it comes to the whole culture thing and what happens when you smother it versus when you allow it to breathe and grow.
Yeah, I'll look at it from maybe commonality between if you're just starting out an enterprise level company. And I think the commonality is shifting. Like everything's going to shift. Your product's going to shift. Your culture's going to shift because if you're just starting out, you're hiring all these new people, right? Whether it's gradual or not, like you're going to bring in people who are going to change your dynamic for the good or the bad. And I think when you're an enterprise level company, you don't have no choice but to shift, right? If you don't shift, your company will go under, essentially, right? So you have to scale up, you have to bring in new people, and it's very uncomfortable, especially at an enterprise level company, when you have to make a pivot where maybe you're a dinosaur type company and now you have to be more innovative, or maybe the innovative company like Google, and then somebody like OpenAI comes out and blows the door open on you. Like it's always going to happen where you just have to shift, and like I think that's a commonality. Like you're gonna have to shift and figure out what are the steps I can take to continually innovate and improve my product, whether you're big or small. I think that's the commonality.
Yeah, my thoughts on that is when I think about like enterprise or small business or startups, I just think about being rooted in something that's fixed, right? And as you grow, remembering where you came from as you scale. An example that I can think of off the top of my head right now is during the pandemic, we all remember Versus, right? And how people were having different battles and competition on the IG lives and whatnot. And when it happened during the pandemic, it was really smooth. It was really cool, right? People really loved it for the culture, right? Had different like musicians compete with their music and whatnot. It was really dope. But then as they scaled and got bigger, more brands, dollars got involved, more ads, more promotions, more sponsors, and it changed. It wasn't the same.
Lost the essence.
Right? It lost its essence, right? It was a genuine feeling when you saw different artists come and go toe for toe, my 20 versus your 20. Then when the brands and sponsors got involved, it changed the vibes because it got sway corporate, all sponsored out and whatnot, and the essence changed. So I definitely do think that when it comes to building based off culture, it kind of is easy, right? A lot of times people think culture is synonymous with black culture, right? Music, entertainment, television. Oh yeah, when you say culture, you mean black people, right? Nah, I'm talking about the shared belief that we all have, right? That shared expression. And being able to leverage that as I'm building is cool. But how do I maintain that as I want to scale and grow, right? And I think that's the thing that a lot of brands struggle with because they don't know how to scale and be an enterprise company making hundreds of millions of dollars while also staying rooted in the community that helped them be where they are today. That's a challenge a lot of brands are struggling to answer. My thing is just remembering where you came from and staying true to your core. Because if you stay true to your core, you're constantly going to scale and level up with the people that brought you there. Any more questions? Project, brother.
When it comes to utilizing culture from a marketing standpoint, how do you guys feel like? What do you guys feel like is the best way to go about applying it to a marketing scheme?
Great question. And before I answer that question, I want to know, is there any other questions in the room before we end Q&A? Okay. The reason why I say that's because we literally are going to do a workshop right after this, right? So like Corwin said earlier, this is just not a panel of us yapping. We actually want to apply this. So for those who want to stay, we're actually going to talk about how to apply culture in building a go-to-market plan for you to communicate that message to customers. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, we're going to do that right after. So I'm going to segue to your question before we get into that.
culture? Is it entertainment? Is it, so how would you say to apply this idea of culture to media?
You said meaning or media?
Media,
Media.
yeah.
Can you give me an example?
Like if I want to start a newsletter, or if I want to start a magazine, if I want to start I would say not a blog type, like a media platform where I'm sharing information, right? How did this apply? Because I'm just thinking profitability. Like, cool, I could scale it, I could build it, I could build a community around it, but then it's like, where does the product come in?
It's the $100 million question. I think all the recent media companies that came out recently, think about Complex or BuzzFeed, they were building around culture. Like it's culture relevance around maybe demographics. Like you think about Gen Z, or I guess when BuzzFeed was hot, it was around like younger millennials, and it died off because they never pivoted and understood how to scale, right? So you can build a media company around culture, but you have to understand people age out. Like I'm gonna kind of take what you said, and I actually want to ask the audience a question because it's something I'm curious about. So you said, how do you build culture around media? I think media is shifting a lot. I work in the media space. Streaming is really, really big, right? People watch Kai Cenat stream. So me and my friends actually went on the stream and watched it. And I'm like, dude isn't doing anything. He went on stream for a whole hour and he's in his bedroom just chilling. Like they're not even talking about anything. It's not even entertaining. And I started thinking about when I was growing up, Bow Wow was pretty famous. I'm thinking about more people who are like in reality TV show. Like think about Bow Wow, Ray J, Snoop Dogg. Like these dudes are more like personality based. And you'd be like, okay, cool. They're on like a private jet. That seems interesting. I'd watch that. But these dudes are just in the house and they're not really doing anything. But that's the new thing, right? In that company that they're on, because they always say that they own the platform, but they don't. But they're using Twitch, and Twitch is owned by Amazon, right? So it's like the culture is already purchased or bought, and it's just leveraged. It's just being put out in a different way, right? So my question to the audience is, do you think streaming will be something, like I mean like actual streamers, something that you'd watch and consume? Because that is culture. That's their culture online. That's why they have 100,000 people watching it at one time. That is technically culturally relevant today.
What was your name again?
James Rashad.
James. So what I would say is that if you're looking to apply culture to media, the first thing I would say is to understand what is your business model, right? Really understand that. Like, how do you plan on making money? Once you're able to establish that, the second thing I would tell you is what makes you unique, what makes you special, right? There's all different ways to consume media, right? Social media, newsletters, all these different ways. What makes you special and why should I care, right? And once you're able to understand that, then you're able to showcase your different spin on it, because the status quo is I get news from this platform, that platform, this platform, but I specifically get this from James' platform. Having that layered on top of your business model, that's a way you're able to monetize and create content that people actually care for, people actually pay for. So that's the way I would go about applying culture to your media business.
Just add what I wanted to say, and it's also the current landscape, which is why I mentioned streaming. The streamers, like whatever you're doing, you do have to consider them because they have a big share of the pie right now.
So I know we answered a few questions. We talked about culture, but we also want to get your thoughts on, based on what we talked about, did anything change based off your perspective of culture? We asked you earlier, how would you define culture? Now we're going to ask you this question after hearing our take on it. So if you refresh your browser, we have this question.
Oh, and if you're new, because some of you all came a little bit later, the way to access it, if you just go to menti.com, right? Because the QR code's not up anymore. You go to menti.com and you just punch in that code, it'll bring you here.
Yeah, it's at the top of the screen, menti.com, put in the code. And we want to get your take on, based on what you heard.
Let's go.
Shout out to City Medina.
Let's go.
Shout out to City.
Are such gems that are worth like millions of dollars. Please apply them to what whether it's like a product, an initiative, it's just been really amazing to hear. First of all, I love you, and I think you are like
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
But, thank y'all for coming out. Thank y'all for bringing life to this space. This space is here. Please don't make this the last time I see y'all here. This space is always here. Angie runs this space. It's 3 floors, all built for us, by us. It is black, it is brown, it is femme, it is queer. It is here for you. Newark Tech Week is completely free. It will be until the day I die. And so thank y'all for being here. I just wanted to give thanks as I run to go clean up on the other events going on. We have a closing party tomorrow. Please come and drink with me. And thank y'all. I'm like literally more hyped now than when I started really early this morning.
Let's go.
Because those are dope ass gens.
And
Bye, y'all.
now, shout out
Lady,
to-
appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Oh, appreciate that. So we asked a few questions earlier. So what is the biggest business challenge you're facing right now? And it seems as if there's some changes that have been made.
The population has changed as well.
So we talked about culture. We talked about seeing it as a growth engine. But now we want to do something cool. Y'all probably seen that Denzel Washington meme where he's like, I'm leaving here with something. I want all y'all to leave here with something. So we're going to do a quick little workshop, 10 to 15 minutes at best. And it's going to be helpful to teach you how to apply culture in your marketing plan to win and keep customers. The same way that Michael asked that question in the back, we're going to do the same way to help you guys be able to understand how to actually use culture to drive growth for a business idea. So what we want you guys to do is to pair out into groups.
Wait. Before that, we want to take a quick selfie with the group. Before,
Oh, yeah, selfie.
before
Let's do that.
Yeah.
So how we gonna do this?
Standing up or sitting down?
Great question.
Just like this?
Photographer, help us.
Y'all want to say yeah. We got our creative director in the back.
Oh,
Yeah.
you gotta be wide. We're new to this, so bear with us. We're trying to figure it out. We're older millennials.